and welcome back to the fifth installment of our pandemic reaction series. If you don't know by now, my name is Emma, and I will be guiding us through this video. Today, I'm going to talk about a concept that emerged a few months ago as we got deeper into the pandemic, right around the 1-year mark this past March. It's called pandemic fatigue. This is essentially being tired of the pandemic. It includes things like impatience and frustration at the restrictions that are in place, being tired of being stuck at home, a yearning to socialize, and just a general feeling of being ready to get back to normal. When this concept started circulating this past March, it had been around 1 year since the pandemic took full force over our lives. So it was, and still might be normal, that by this point in time, people were and are sort of over it. Depending when you're watching this video, the pandemic may or may not still be a relevant force in our lives. It could have an effect on us for years to come. So pandemic fatigue can exist really at any time or phase of the pandemic. Basically, it just involves being tired of the pandemic affecting our lives in one way or another, and being ready to not have it be a part of our lives at all. So to take a look at some of the ways that we feel the effects of pandemic fatigue in our personal experiences, again, I will go through the physical, behavioral, cognitive, and emotional effects of pandemic fatigue. So physically, we might experience restlessness. We could also experience physically feeling tired or physically having a lot of energy. We also might begin to engage in pre-pandemic behaviors, which could include reverting back to our usual habits and socialization. But on the flip side, it could also cause the opposite effect, which would be to further isolate ourselves as a result of hopelessness of things returning to normal. So behaviorally, it kind of goes hand in hand with physically. We might, like I said, start to engage in old behaviors, might ignore mandates, which vary depending on where you live. We might also experience decision fatigue, which I mentioned in the last video. This is something where we are faced with many options, like, do I just give up? Do I bend the rules? Do I do what my friends are doing, etc. When we're facing all of these questions and options, we end up feeling fatigued by having to answer these questions and options. And at the end of the day, end up having less of an ability to make good decisions. So emotionally, pandemic fatigue could cause us to feel frustrated, detached, hopeless, indecisive, defiant, angry, and just generally exhausted. And then lastly, cognitively, experiencing pandemic fatigue can make us begin to think things like, I'm so impatient, I'm ready for this to be done. When will I get to leave the house without a mask? When will things be back to 100% normal? These are a reflection of thinking restless, impatient, and hopeless thoughts. So what are some things that we can do to combat the exhaustion, impatience, and decisions required involved in pandemic fatigue? Some good coping skills for reducing pandemic fatigue are, first, to set and respect boundaries for yourself and others, meaning to follow guidelines if you feel safe, and to understand that you might have a different comfort level than someone else. Another great idea is to remind yourself that hopefully we are closer to the end, or at least to new changes, to keep a positive frame of mind. Also, continue to find new hobbies and new traditions that you can continue practicing even outside of the pandemic to focus on the positive things that are coming into your life out of this. In general, try to reflect on any positives from the past year as a form of gratitude. Specifically, some self-care aspects of coping with pandemic fatigue can include spending time with friends and family in a way that you're comfortable with and connecting with them in new ways. Again, appreciating nature and spending time outside. Continuing to practice healthy habits. And then, as always, self-soothing strategies when any negative feelings can come up. Pandemic fatigue is a unique facet of the COVID-19 pandemic, but the coping skills and self-care associated with pandemic fatigue can really extend to any sort of frustration or fatigue in other areas of life. So as always, feel free to extend some of these newfound practices to your life in general when experiencing frustration and fatigue. Hopefully this discussion has reminded you that you're not alone, and that there are positive ways of managing your emotions and reactions to the situations that you might find yourself in. Please tune in next week to the next video where I will discuss vaccine anxiety and how to deal with it. In the meantime, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them here below this video or on any of our mental health partners' social media profiles, which you can find in the link below this video. At the end of the month, we will have a team member hosting a live stream to answer or engage with any of your comments and questions. So feel free to let us know what you think. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.